Hello, 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 and welcome to the Kevin Ross Emery Show this week with Matt Connarton from
Oh,
mattconnerton.com.
that's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh,
Hey, UB,
forgot.
how be you, UB?
How be me? That's
How
very
be you?
poor grammar, Dr.
How
Kevin.
be you, UB?
How what? Is that even English? I don't know what's going on.
I always thought it was funny. I used to belong to an organization called IBI, and then I belonged to an organization called UB, and then I went and got my degree at a place whose initials were UBU. So I've gone from IBI to UBU. So I was asking how you be today, Mr. Matthew?
I think I might have IBS.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
that's painful.
I know.
Well, if you have to excuse yourself in the middle of the show, because when IBS calls, you can't not answer.
That's right. I can mute the mic for a moment if I have to.
So anyways, welcome to the first Thursday of the month, which traditionally was always when we had you come in and talk about politics, and we still do some political conversation, but I don't know if you've noticed the last few months, we're doing a lot of wide ranging stuff. And
Yeah.
politics is kind of shrinking down in our conversational thing. So I want to start by checking in and seeing how are you doing? What's going on these days?
I am. I have embarked on a bit of a new educational journey. I enrolled in the Google. Google has a number of professional certifications, and I've started the digital marketing and e-commerce course certification, which I'm excited about. I have a lot of experience. These are areas that I have a lot of experience in already, but it's something that I have a passion for, and something that I know will help me in all aspects of the various things that I do, whether it be hypnotherapy or whether it be music marketing. But also it'll kind of expand my knowledge, but also it's going to look really good on my resume to get that certification. They also offer a cybersecurity certification, which I'm thinking about. They also offer a data analytics certification, which apparently is the most valuable one to have in terms of income potential. But there's a lot of math with that, and I don't even know what calculus is, to be honest. So I'll probably avoid that one. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the new course that I'm taking.
So what I heard you say is you're not going to take the data analytics because the math doesn't add up for you.
I can't make it add up. I don't think my brain is wired for that. I may find a free data analytics course that I can take somewhere just to try it and see if I can do the math, but I'm not good at math, and there's a lot of math involved in that. I mean, there's math involved in any kind of business, but it looks like that might be a little too much for me. I failed college accounting the first time I took it. I had to retake it. It was the first time in my life I'd ever failed a class. I was pretty devastated at the time. But yeah, math is not my friend.
And it kind of depends on the math that's involved. My grandmother, the grandmother that talked to me about being psychic when I was a child, she taught math at a private school, was a teacher, and was considered like brilliant in math. Like she was like a idiot savant when it came to math. Is the family what I hear, but I know that she taught math at a very exclusive private school. And she, of course, this was back in the early 1900s that she was doing this, but math and I have an interesting relationship. I was in advanced math classes in school, but really wanted nothing to do with it by the time I finished.
Mm,
but went into accounting and auditing as my beginning in my professional career. And
yeah.
it's so funny. The thing about, you said you flunked accounting, general accounting, but I think that there was always a calmness that I found in working with numbers, knowing that if I stayed with it, that at the end of the day, they were nice and neat and they added up.
Right.
There's nothing messy about numbers. If you have all the information and it doesn't add up, then you don't have some of the information correct, and then you have to find it, and
Yeah.
and kind of the adventure of the search. I remember being hired to go in and do a start in more of a consulting way to this retail store, the chain, and they had a store that was just horribly with its shortages and its cash shortages and its inventory shortages. And they hired me to come in and from that perspective, see if I could figure out. And I attacked the books and I found like $250,000 in errors for them.
Mm,
Like they really weren't missing anything. Everything had just been entered wrong.
okay. Yeah.
There was some, but at the end of it, but garbage in, garbage out. So I
Yeah.
always found math as calming. It's very
No,
different than dealing with people.
that makes sense though. Even though I don't enjoy math, I understand what you're saying. That makes sense. There's an absolutism to it. And it's all going to make sense in the end, or at least it should. No, that actually makes sense to me. I can see why you feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, dealing with people, now there's a wild ride.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think in high school, in my early 20s, I think I had a wild enough ride in my personal life that I didn't need one in my professional life.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good. So tell me again, remind me, what is the course that you're actually taking? And this is like a Google, like, do you take it at your own pace? Is there
Yep.
a teacher? Like, tell me more about this.
I'm on my third day, but I'm already in week 3 because I learn fast, and well. Plus, I also, like I said, I do have a lot of experience in that field already. But I'm learning a lot of. I'm getting up to date on a lot of the technology, and it's very in depth about digital marketing and e-commerce. And learning about sales funnels and all that kind of thing that's so important to know about. I also, I'm usually taking, like, I've taken some courses through Udemy, which I used to say Udemy, and then I realized everyone else was saying Udemy. I'm always trying to learn. I think it's really important, especially as I get older. We all, as we all do. It's important to always be learning. Technology moves so fast, and so marketing associated with technology moves fast, and things change quickly. So adaptability is very important, and also just it's good for the brain. I think a lot of people, they get to a certain age, and the idea of learning anything new, or especially taking a course with the express purpose of learning something new, is kind of anathema to them. They're like, well, what, I don't need to keep learning. But I think it's important. I think that, there's a lot of research that shows that, staying engaged mentally and learning new things helps, stave off things like dementia and Alzheimer's, and all that kind of thing. It's really important as we get older. Then I got a little gray in my facial hair there, so you can see I'm not as young as I once was. But I think I think it's important to just always be learning, and always challenge yourself, to learn new things. I think it's very important.
One of the things when I have worked with clients through the years, and there have been more studies to prove this than there used to be back when I started tromping on this particular stage about staying young. And one of the ways we do stay young mentally is our brain will get lazy if we do the same thing the same way every day, over and over again. It doesn't have to really wake up. It goes on autopilot.
Yeah.
And the longer it stays on autopilot, the less the plasticity in the brain, it stiffens, and then it's harder to learn.
Yeah.
But you're constantly learning, you're constantly working in that plasticity. And so it is very important for lots of reasons. But when people talk to me about, oh, I'm afraid of getting old, or I don't have it, I said, there are so many just little things you can do. You can just sleep on the other side of the bed every third night or something. So you're waking up and your eyes are seeing something different than it normally sees. And that steps your brain into, okay, I'm awake, I'm functioning. Where am I? What am I looking at?
Yeah.
If you always sleep on one side of the bed, but when you travel, sleep on the other side of the bed. Even though you'd still wake up to something strange, you're also waking up in it. There are, and then things like, I've never played Wordle, but things like crosswords and, anything that encourages learning that involves both left and right side of the brain.
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, you should be doing something that is stimulating those creative centers and exploring things just as much as the analytic centers. So,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think it's important too to, always find new things that are, new challenges. I know there's a lot of research that shows that people who retire, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but people who retire and then just decide, okay, great, now I don't have to do anything and I've got enough money, I can sit in a rocking chair and watch TV, maybe read the newspaper in the morning, but just kind of hang out. They die younger than people who continue to remain actively engaged, even if they're not still, even if they've retired from their full-time career. Maybe here in New Hampshire, of course, a lot of them end up, for better or worse, running for the state legislature. But it's so important to remain engaged in a meaningful way. And I believe that humans are like sharks in that way. If we stop moving, we die. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of stopping moving. They say, all right, I worked hard and now I can chill. And they stop moving and then they die.
Well, it was true for a long time that I think that the average lifespan for your kind of middle America person who did the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday or 7 to 3 or whatever, but the traditional kind of work job in place, that men died on average within 5 years after they retired. And part of that was that their whole value and validation as a person was wrapped up in their job and who they were. And that jobs, inherently tend to have some kind of daily stimulation, even if it's a stimulation of your coworkers.
You're right. A purpose.
There's a purpose. And then if you just sit there and don't know what to do with yourself and don't do a lot, you can very quickly go downhill.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I always remember that piece of like awareness information coming across to me. I think it was in the 70s. That they were starting to go, just sitting home and relaxing is just kind of like practicing for death.
Yeah, it's just waiting to die.
You're just waiting to die. You didn't bother to establish a life that had purpose outside of the career that defined you.
Yeah.
So interesting conversations. So good luck on your classes, on your class. We'll see if there's other things. And of course, I expect to get some kind of great little tip that I can pass on to my marketing team from you. If you need to do a class project, I'm your guy.
All right.
Because you can never do your class project on yourself.
Right.
So it's funny because I spent 4 hours today doing a strategy meeting for my business with my team.
Yeah.
which by the end of it, I wanted to rip my hair out and poke my eyes out and just go, oh,
Really?
oh. Well, I mean, by the end of the meeting, I mean, we brought up some really good stuff in the meeting, and we're trying to set up our 2025 marketing plan, and what are we going to roll out, and what are we going to prioritize for new intellectual property of mine to come out, and like, where do I want to put my energies, and what classes do I want to release, and what new books. I'm going to have at least one new book coming out in 2025, but there's a possibility I might have two.
Mm.
I think I was trying to think. Three, no, maybe four. I think my busiest year, I got 4 books out.
Oh, wow.
But some of them were cheaters. I mean, like, I'd worked on them. I mean, they weren't all start to finish in the year, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. So, but by the end of it, we started doing some of the tedious stuff that I was just like, all I could think of is, and I don't know if you remember this, is if you want somebody to eat sausage, you never show them how you make sausage.
Right.
Yep. You never want to see how they make sausage. You'll never eat
Right.
it. And it's kind of like when they started getting into some of like the technical stuff, I'm like, your job is to say, hey, I need from you, blah. This is what it looks like. This is what I need you to do. This stuff,
Right.
Not that I can't, but I only have so much energy.
Yeah.
Boy, I have been crazy, crazy busy. So
Good.
which is a good thing,
Yes. Yes.
How is the coaching going?
Well, I'm not really doing coaching per se, as we've discussed. I am doing hypnosis, but haven't really settled on what I want the coaching to look like yet.
I want you to do a professional version of a Boilermaker. You remember Boilermakers? Maybe
Is that a kind of type of drink?
A Boilermaker was they I think they were popular in the 50s and 60s, but I remember hearing about them when I used to go see my Uncle Charlie. And it was like you do a shot of whiskey and then you drink a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
You do the shot of whiskey, kind of like, you see how they like tap it on the table and then do the shot and then you drink your beer. Well, doing whiskey and beer, maybe other liquors, like other combinations, I don't know. But I know growing up as a kid, those were called Boilermakers. And, to get the juices boiling, get the juices
Okay.
Boilermaker. Just, I don't know. I mean, my uncle was a working class guy. He worked in a tannery. Nice guy. I mean, like, I'm not saying anything bad about him, but I just always remember that term. Well, we need to create your professional Boilermaker. That shot of whiskey is your hypnosis session. And then the long swirl of the beer is your coaching.
Yeah.
Now that we've eliminated this part, we're going to dig deeper so that you can maintain it and you can keep it going and you can now evolve past it. And, like I'm going to harass you forever and a day on this.
Yes. Yes.
Team Matt, I know you can do it. I know
appreciate it.
The world needs what you have to offer.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Thank you.
So I am going to ask the question because there is some news stuff I want to talk about and some other things that I want to kind of go by today. I do want to take a minute. Matt has his website, mattconnarton.com underneath. I do like to remind people, though, that on WMNH 95.3 FM, Manchester, 9 to noon on Saturday, you have Matt Connarton Unleashed, where he brings in, well, some out of the region talent, but you also really specialize in local musicians, giving them a place. And so it's mostly music. And then you're having, because you used to do a lot of politics, which is how you ended up on the first Thursday of the month, because I wanted somebody to come in and kind of try to give us a fair and balanced view of what was going on in the political world.
Yeah.
And, but then you have a podcast that's going to take you back to a little bit more of your political roots. And where do people find that?
Yeah, you can find that on the IPM Nation YouTube channel, and it's available on the Matt Connarton Unleashed podcast feed. So where all your favorite podcasting platforms will have it. Yeah, after the election, Eric Pilcher and I did. So I'm calling it. I've kind of given it a different name though, slightly different name. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed AF, and I tell everyone if you don't know what AF stands for, just ask someone younger than you. But the idea with the podcast is anything that is not suitable for the radio show. So politics, because we used to do that on the radio show, but now we don't. We've taken that completely out of the radio show. So now we're only doing that on the podcast version of the show, or anything else that comes up, any interviews or anything that I want to do that I don't think are necessarily suitable for the current format of the radio show that airs on FM. We're going to do, instead of on the FM version, we'll do on the AF version, completely uncensored, unfettered, and unleashed on online. So far, we've only done one of the AF shows, and that was, like I said, Eric Pilcher and I did the, I called it the election dejection episode, where we looked back at the 2024 election.
So, well, let me know if you ever want me to come on and do an AF show. I'm sure we can
Definitely
AF things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I haven't been on your show since before the pandemic, and that's when it was in the old format. When I used to actually come into the studio and sit there and make faces at you.
Yes. You gotta see the new place. It's so nice.
Yeah. Well, so how are you taping Matt Connarton AF?
Kind of like this, except I don't use StreamYard. I use Restream, which is very similar to StreamYard. Works basically the same, but yeah. With the election episode, we just recorded it and then I just uploaded it afterward. So yeah.
I'm gonna be moving to a pre-recorded at some point. I think live is nice, and we do get people. And remember, you can, if you comment on the Facebook page, we do get it here. I see it come in. We're happy to answer questions of any and all kinds: spiritual, business, hypnotherapy, relationship. I mean, between Matt and I, we cover a lot of things. So anyways, what I want to do is, so yeah, we'll figure out a time to do an AF. I'm pretty sure I know I can pre-tape on StreamYard as well, but I think I'm really moving towards wanting to do more of a pre-taped and not get quite so nailed down.
Right.
And people can, they can, still see it on all of the social medias, and we'll still have it out to all the podcast places. And on social media, I mean, on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, they can still comment and we can still see the comments. We can still bring the comments into a future show. They just won't be a live interchange.
Yeah.
So I have a t-shirt that says "Proud as AF."
Oh, okay.
And so I wore it to church one day, and my minister asked me if I thought that was a appropriate t-shirt to wear at church.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why it's not. And he goes, do you know what that means? And I said, proud and fabulous. Why? What did you think it meant?
Yeah.
That's what it means, right? Matt Connarton and fabulous.
Can mean whatever you want it to mean. I keep up with all the lingo though, Dr. Kevin. Got to keep up with all the young people lingo.
Yes. Remember when we were the young people?
I don't know. I don't feel any different. No matter how old I get, I don't feel any different. But I have a theory about this. I think it's because I don't have any children.
Children makes a difference.
Yeah, because I've had this conversation with other childless people, and my theory is, and people who don't have kids will often agree with me about this, that I think if you have children, you have these very clear stages of life. You know, you've got your stage when you don't have any children, and then you've got your stage where you're now a parent, and then when your children have children, you're now in a new stage. You're now in the grandparent stage, and I think that you know, I'm sure I haven't experienced it, but I'm sure you really feel those different stages as they're occurring. You know, okay, I'm a parent now. Okay, now I'm a grandparent, and so forth. But people like me who don't have any children, we don't experience those stages. So no matter, regardless of my age, I don't really feel any different. I mean, I don't know what's supposed to happen. At some point, I guess I'm supposed to wake up with back pain every morning. I don't know, but so far, I don't feel any different now than I did 30 years ago.
Well, it's interesting because there is a tie up with all of that stuff, Matt, how I see it, because there is a lot of mini stages in that big view,
Hmm.
which is the parent of an infant and having
Mhm.
to learn the skill sets and how to figure out how to do that. Then you have the parent of the toddler and the one and the cognitive and the learning and the child. And then you have the baby adult in puberty. I mean, like
Mhm.
those things will age you. I
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
mean, like there's a lot there.
Yeah, no doubt. It sounds
And
like a
yeah,
lot of work.
I have worked with any countless number of people who had parents that never grew up, that they outgrew by the time they were a teenager on
Yeah.
an emotional level, on a, you know, so it's very much it's a different pathway. And I feel like they both have their pros and cons. I mean, I always wanted children for a long time.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm great with children. I love children, um, but it was not meant for me in this lifetime. I've worked with lots of children, and I have
Yeah.
lots of people that have, adopted me as Uncle Kevin or Papa Kevin, or I have all sorts of where I play a kind of parental role and in a loose format, but
Hmm.
not the day. I mean, I did do co-parenting for a year with a woman I lived with and was engaged to a long time ago. But
Oh,
yeah, but I and loved it. In fact, I always felt like I loved being being a parent more than she did. Ah,
mm. Huh.
um, but anyways, so that said, uh, what do you? So first of all, I'm going to try to skip and not get into probably until the first show in February what the clown car is doing,
Hmm.
because there's no sense, there's no purpose. There are so many things that are going to yank up and yank down, and
Hmm.
this guy was going to be this and now they're not, and now this one, no, oh yeah, they may not make it either, and then we have this one, and what's going to happen. I do think it is very interesting, the whole thing that just happened in Korea, though,
Yeah.
where the president for 18 hours declared an emergency and shut the government down and tried to go dictator, and it was what, 18 hours before they overthrew him, and he removed the. And I thought, well, I hope somebody on this side of the water is watching what the consequences can be if you try to do a legal military coup.
Right. Right.
Though I can't say that I can see Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi crawling over the wall to get into Congress so they can vote. Uh,
No, especially not Nancy. I mean, she's in her 80s.
I don't know.
She wouldn't be able to get back up.
I
She
bet
started crawling.
I bet she's pretty feisty. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but is there anything going on the political spectrum that, just to give a nod to our previous more politically oriented shows, that you think is of note that people aren't paying attention to or should be aware of?
Oh, probably. I do think that something that I'm hearing a lot is people saying, well, maybe this time Trump will be different. People trying to be sort of optimistic that people who didn't support him, but who think, he may have grown, he may have matured and so forth. Um, but no, I mean, look at the people he's nominating, as you alluded to, I can't say his name, Pete Hegseth, who, he did say, if you let me run the Pentagon, I'll stop drinking, which is good of him, I suppose. But, he nominated Matt Gaetz. Of course, Gaetz had to withdraw, but, Tulsi Gabbard, who's, it sounds like, is probably severely compromised for national security. Clearly he's signaling, Trump is signaling that nothing has changed. I don't know that he'll necessarily be worse this time, because as I said, I think the last time we did this, I said, he is older and, he's almost 80. So those testosterone levels are probably lower than they were the first time he was in office. And so he may just want to play a lot of golf and may not be that interested in the job overall. There are those who worked for him who said that actually the job of the presidency itself, actually governing, was never that interesting to him to begin with. So, he may lay back a bit, but so far from what we're seeing from these nominees, no, he's the same guy, and it is a clown car, as you said. And there's no evidence that we're going to see anything to the contrary. I mean, Kash Patel to run the FBI, it goes on. So I don't know that it's necessarily going to be any worse, because, like I said, he might not have the energy to be his worst self, but he's not. He hasn't matured. He hasn't grown. I remember after the assassination attempt, people saying, "Oh, this might really affect him. He might be a different person now." It's like, hey, come on, no. Why? Why would that happen? Why would that make him a different person? He's the same guy. And so I think anyone who's thinking that he might be different is being naive, frankly.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's foolish to think that a narcissist is going to grow up.
Yeah. Right.
It's kind of like saying, oh, hey, did you know that when Napoleon Bonaparte actually became emperor, he went from 5'6" to 5'10"? That was more likely to happen than Trump having maturity.
Right. And Trump, if anything, Trump has learned that being the guy he was actually works for him, because he managed to, I mean, felonies and all, he managed to get back to the White House.
Yep.
He did it. It all worked out. Not only does he never have to really face accountability for anything, he managed to get all the way back to the White House.
So I hear a lot of this, and I'd like to have your take on it. And then I'm going to switch subjects unless there's something else in politics you want to talk about, which is that I want to talk about there's a lot of kind of thought process out there that that he is going to more or less, that, he could just twiddle his thumbs for the 4 years and stuff like this. But he is bringing in rabid people, a lot of them associated with Project 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk is like, somebody needs to bring Flyboy back to Earth. No concept of what it's like to be an American and a below the $1 billion level American.
Right. Yeah, he was born rich.
Yeah, no concept.
Right.
And so, but I hear a lot of talk that the people that voted him in are going to be some of the most heavily impacted if these sharks start taking big bites out of the programs they want to justify tax cuts to the billionaires.
Right.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that that there are people that pulled that lever for Trump that within the first 12 or 18 months are going to start to really regret it? Not the hardcore cultists, because they're just clueless.
Right.
I mean, like they're just going to die in the land of delusion. But it was more than the hardcores that got him elected.
Yeah. No, I don't think even the not so hardcores will begin to regret it, because they won't notice. And what I mean, because I understand what you're saying, you know, obviously, if you start cutting social programs that actually help the very constituents who voted, you would think that those constituents would say, wow, maybe I miscast my vote. But the problem is, we have decades of evidence to the contrary, because there's something that so much of this, and so much of this around Trump and MAGA and Trump's Republican Party, so much of it is just a symptom of something. I always say Trump is not truly the cause of anything. He's the symptom of something that he's just been able to exploit and really capitalize on better than anyone else. Because, you know, I forget the piece of literature it originally comes from, but you know, the saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is to convince the world that he doesn't exist. I've always said the greatest trick the Republican Party ever pulled was to convince poor and middle class Americans that the best way to help them is to protect the wealthy at all costs. And millions of Republicans believe that. If you tell them the best thing we can do for you is to protect the rich, and that's going to trickle down to you. And despite decades of evidence directly to the contrary, they just still believe it. So the people you're talking about who are going to be hurt by Trump's policies, you know, the hardcore MAGA, of course, they'll never realize it or understand it, because they are in a cult and this is their God king. But even just run of the mill Republicans who just like Trump because he was the Republican nominee, so they voted for him, they'll never understand it either, because they haven't understood it by now. If they haven't gotten it by now, they never will. They honestly believe that you have to make sure that the wealthy pay as little as possible in taxes, because they're the quote unquote job creators. That's what they've been conditioned to believe. And, you know, it doesn't matter if they're eating ramen noodles every night, they're going to continue to believe that. That's just what they think, because that's what they've been told and they believe it.
What do you think of the Hunter Biden pardon?
A lot of people are really angry or disappointed. Personally, I'm fine with it. It's a loving, I just look at it from a human perspective. It's a loving father who was in a tremendously unique position to do something to help his son. And out of compassion and love for his son, he's helping him. There's an element to this, so no one is saying, that I just want to add to that to bolster my argument. I think Biden, because I know the counter argument from a lot of people is, well, he said over and over again, he promised he would not pardon Hunter, and he's gone back on his word. I think that something that might also be going on in Biden's mind is he may have changed his mind, because he's looking at the situation and going, you know, I didn't think it was the right thing to do out of principle to pardon my son. But now I realize we live in a country that just elected a convicted felon to the presidency. So, you know what? At this point, screw it. I'm going to pardon my son, because we're already living in idiocracy. So if this is really what it is, if my country is going to elect a convicted felon, a guy who tried to overturn the last election through an insurrection, my country just reelected that guy, screw it. All bets are off. I'm going to go ahead and pardon my kid. I don't blame him at all. I do not blame him at all. And I'm perfectly fine with it.
So I'm fine with it as well. In fact, I applaud it. And I look at it, interestingly, as an equity issue. Because what Hunter Biden did, if anybody else had done it, this thing would have gone away, been cleared away. He would have got some kind of, offer there. I mean, they were ready to settle it in a way that they would settle it for any non-Biden person.
Mm-hmm.
And it got blown up because it was a talking point for the GOP. And so what I say is Biden smartened up and realized they're going to weaponize my child, and he's not being punished for what he did. He's going to be punished for me as his father.
Well, he said as much in his statement. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, I get it. I get it. I think that's a wise move. I think you have every right to make it. And I applaud it. And I would have thought less of you had you not done it.
Yeah.
Knowing how cutthroat and unethical the other side is in doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's also, of course, a big push now that suggesting that he should pardon other people too who have been threatened with prosecution for just made up stuff like they want to prosecute Dr. Fauci, they want to prosecute who else? I think they probably want to prosecute AOC for something, and they want to prosecute Nancy Pelosi for something, or just all this crazy stuff. The only problem though is with that idea that my understanding is the pardoning process, a president's right to pardon people, it's a little more complicated than people might realize. For example, I didn't even realize until we ended up talking about it so much during the Trump administration, this question of can a president pardon himself, which is still an open question. I didn't realize until then that it was only for federal crimes, that a president cannot pardon someone for state crimes. I'd always assumed that the pardon power was absolute, and apparently it is not. But there's also this issue of can you pardon someone for something they haven't even been charged with yet? Can you do these sort of blanket pardons that say, okay, for whatever crimes you might have committed during X amount of years, you are pardoned? Or how does that work exactly? It gets a little more, because legal scholars do argue over this, how the pardon power works, where and how is it actually applicable, and that it's a lot more complicated than people realize. Because it does seem a little crazy to say, for example, so Biden can just pardon someone to shield them from political persecution and prosecution at the same time, right? But can he just offer a blanket pardon? What if he offers a blanket pardon to someone and that stands, and then we find out later that someone he pardoned during that period of time actually committed a murder? We can't prosecute that person now because they were given this preemptive, vague pardon for X amount of time. You see what I mean? It gets a little tricky when you really think about it. And I think that's why some legal scholars have argued over the pardon power.
So if it is possible to do, I think it would be a good choice for Biden to pardon everybody that was on the January 6th committee.
Yes.
And, and maybe it needs to be a pardon for any and all, federal crimes associated with their role in the January 6th. Maybe there's a way it needs to be languaged, because I understand what you're saying. But if Trump has the power and energy to do anything, he's going to do vengeance first and then go
Yes.
to the golf course.
Yes. Yes.
And so I do think that, he owes it to the people who did risk knowing that if Trump or Trump's people ever got back in power, there would be retaliation, and they chose to do it anyways. Liz Cheney, Adam, and then, there was all the Democrats. But I mean, he goes after his non-loyal allies with greater vigor than he goes after his opponents. Have you noticed that?
Well, to him, they're all the same. I mean, the moment you cross him, you become an opponent, even if you agree with him on everything else.
Yep. But there is that, back to the Boilermaker, there's that shot of whiskey that says you were supposed to be loyal to me and you weren't.
Yeah.
And he goes even more after vengeance with those people where, yes, you're my opponent and I'm going to take you out in every way I do it. But there's almost like you're my opponent and I respect you as my opponent and I'm still going to do every dirty deed in the book to take you out. I mean, I have no morals or ethics. I mean, he proves that all the time.
Right.
But if you were somebody that was supposed to be loyal to me, well, that's a death sentence to Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's very interesting. He's more likely to spend more energy going after the Republicans that he feels like betrayed his loyalty, or people like Cassidy Hutchinson, or, these people he will go after with a vengeance even more so than the Democrats.
Or really anybody that worked for him in the first administration, because almost all of those people are not coming back and they've had nothing nice to say about him. And yeah, some of them have written books. The other thing that occurs to me too about the pardons is when you accept a pardon, you're acknowledging guilt. So again, how does that work if you're accepting a pardon? I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky stuff.
Yep. Well, does year 3, if not before, does Trump step down so JD can give him a pardon as president, even if it's in the last 6 months of his presidency? I feel like because Trump has the illusion he's never going to die because that's a narcissistic quality. So, the way that Jack Smith, somebody else who should get a pardon, if there's going to be a head in your mind, is he closed the case, he put it aside, but it is one that when Trump's presidency is over, could be resurrected.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned too, JD Vance. That's something too that nobody's talking about it. I think I might have said it. I know I said it to Eric Pilcher on our podcast. I don't know if I've said this to you on here, but hopefully there are people who are smart people in the Democratic Party who are preparing for, because you're going to want to plan ahead how to deal with the President JD Vance, if there is any way to prepare for that. Because I believe that is going to happen, because I don't believe Trump is going to serve until he's 82 years old. And I'm not saying he's going to drop dead in office or anything. Maybe he very well might, but I don't believe he's going to serve until he's 82. I do firmly believe JD Vance will be the 48th president of the United States for that reason. He's in a great position. He's the luckiest vice president ever, or vice president elect, I should say, because he's not in yet, but because he's going to be president. I just don't see a scenario where he's not president. So, and we'll go from an 80-year-old to a 40-year-old when that happens, but which could be a good thing. Maybe. I don't know.
It's going to depend on which way the wind is blowing and up JD's skirt, because he's a chameleon.
Yes.
He's proven that over and over again, and he's going to stick his finger in the wind and see how it's blowing when he becomes president. And, so, and he's one that is more calculated in his vengeance, but I don't see him as somebody that some of these people that are kind of belittling him, that are coming in as potential Trump cabinet members or honored people in the administration. There's been a lot of JD Vance bashing, infighting around that. And so they all better realize if he becomes president, I don't think he's going to just turn the other cheek on the fact that they did their best to minimize or humiliate him. And
Unless he becomes president and he says, okay, I'm going to finally turn the page on MAGA. Again, he's a young guy and he is a chameleon, but by all accounts, there appears to have been a time in his life where he was more of a moderate thinker.
Yeah.
He might be the guy to save everybody from MAGA. I mean, we're going to have to wait a couple of years for it to happen. My prediction is, this is my prediction after the midterms, because we know the Democrats are going to do very well in the 26 midterms, because that's just what happens. Republicans run the table for now. They've got full control. So whatever party has control ends up taking a big loss in the midterms, right? So the 26 midterms, the Dems are going to pick up a lot of seats. And, and presidents have experienced that, of course. George W. Bush famously called it a thumping when the Democrats picked up a lot of seats during the midterms in his second term. And Barack Obama, when it happened to him, he called it a shellacking. And I don't know what Trump will call it, but I think that that will be the point. After the midterms, Trump will say, okay, it's time for me to go. And then JD Vance will become president. That's when I think it's most likely to happen.
I know what Trump's going to say when it happens.
What?
Election fraud.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's a given. Yeah, that's a given.
So let's talk about Brian Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on any of that?
I never, ever, under any circumstances, condone violence, and certainly not murder. Having said that, and I just know a lot about this because of my proximity to, not direct participation, but my proximity to a lot of the activism that has gone on against United Healthcare, because United Healthcare denies coverage, denies healthcare to more patients than any other insurance company in the United States, perhaps even in the world. 32%, I believe, is their denial rate.
Yep.
So Brian Thompson, and he was, I believe, on his way to an investors conference where he would be crowing about how enormously profitable United Healthcare continues to be, because they deny healthcare to so many people and cause tremendous suffering and death to so many people. So Brian Thompson, in my view, was an absolute POS. I'm not condoning anything. No one should be murdered. But I shed no tears either, if I'm being really honest. He was a bad guy. Now he's dead. Oh, well.
Well, I think that
Too harsh?
no.
I'm not condoning anything, but I don't care that he's dead. I'm not going to dance on his grave. I might dance nearby if there's a good song playing. I don't know if I feel the rhythm.
Do you think, because the last thing I read was on 2 of the bullet casings that they had the word delay and deny, which puts it right squarely into somebody who probably lost a loved one because United Healthcare kept on dragging their feet and not paying out.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Do you think this will be any kind of a wake up call, or is this just gonna, you know, dead billionaire, we got too many of them anyways, and be yesterday's news in a month? Or do you think that this may have any other shock waves?
I hope that something comes out of it, that it kind of refocuses people on how messed up our healthcare system is in this country, specifically with regard to health insurance. And the thing that I always like to remind people about health insurance is that it is a business, and from a business standpoint, they only want you around as long as they're making money off of you. So if you're healthy and your premiums are getting paid every month, you're an asset. The moment you get sick and you go from being healthy to having something that costs the insurance company a lot of money, you are no longer an asset. You are now a liability. Because of that, once you cross that bridge and you become a liability, their preference as a business, from a business perspective, their preference is that you die. Because if you die, you're no longer costing them money. You're no longer making them money. But once you're dead, you're no longer costing them money. So they want you to die. If you have United Healthcare and you're costing them money, they want you to die. And they're happy to help you die by denying you healthcare. Brian Thompson was happy to help you die by denying you healthcare. By the way, Brian Thompson, for anyone who might feel badly, at least he took it in the back. He didn't have to see it coming. He got off easy in that sense. Think about it. If the gunman had come at him from the front and he had to stare down the barrel of that gun, Brian Thompson would have had to, in that moment, face his own mortality, face the prospect of his own demise, just like all the people who he made sure were denied their health care have to face and had to face their own mortality. Brian Thompson would have had to do that in that moment, but he didn't have to do that because he got it in the back.
Yeah. There is, I'm going to wrap it up with these thoughts because we're almost out of time. I wrote this thing a long time ago, and it came into my mind when I saw what happened. And I want, I did a blog called, I should try to see if I can find it and update it and resurrect it, called Out Damn Spot, from Lady Macbeth trying to get the blood off her hands.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody who profits off the financial viability of United Healthcare has blood on their hands.
Agreed.
If you own stock and you're in their stockholder meeting insisting that you have more profits or you want more money made, you have blood on your hands.
Agreed.
And if you do not file a protest with your company that has it in your 401k that you don't want an unethical company, you have blood on your hands. And I just wanted to be very clear that all of these people that are out there and go, oh, that's horrible, 32% denial rate, or that's horrible, why would somebody kill that man? No, you have blood on your hands because investors have become pariah to getting, by squeezing out quarter by quarter, or they'll fire CEOs or disrupt boards or stuff like this. It's absolute just greed.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no tolerance for anybody who has money that they make money off somebody like a United Healthcare or a Tesla. There's blood on your hands there too. And so that was my closing thoughts on it. And I had a funny feeling I knew how you would feel about it, but I thought it would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you have a good rest of the year.
Thank you. You too.
I'm going to end the stream, but I'm going to ask you if you want to hold on for a minute after the stream so I can
Sure.
talk to you.
Okay.
Next week, we will be back with the Kevin Ross Emery show with Ashley Oldstein. And we will be doing our theme of the month for December, which is kind of surviving the holidays.
Mm.
So on that note, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And Matt, you'll see Matt next month on the first Thursday of January.